Yeah, years ago, if you walked into a bank with a mask on, you got arrested. Now, if you walk into a bank without a mask on, you get
You get
arrested. So,
arrested.
the world's kind of done a bit of a 180.
And once again, welcome to the Digital Customer Success Podcast. I'm Alex Turkovich. I'm so glad you could join us here today and every week as I seek out and interview leaders and practitioners who are innovating and building great scale CS programs. My goal is to self-educate and bring you along for the ride so that you get the insights that you need to evolve your own digital customer success program. If you want more info or you need to get in touch or sign up to get the latest updates from us, go to digitalcustomersuccess.com. But for now, let's get started with today's show. Welcome to episode 11. Pleasure to have you here. Today's conversation is with Simon Kriss, who is incredibly involved in just the CX world in general, and has actually written a new book, which is out now. I think it just hit the bestseller list on Amazon, actually. It's called The AI-Empowered Customer Experience. Definitely a good read. Lots of great use cases in there. So we talk about that in our conversation. We spend a lot of time talking about innovation and what it means to actually innovate rather than just using the buzzword innovation. One key takeaway is that a lot of times, it takes slowing down to move faster. It takes really taking a step back, understanding what your goals are, and then, really moving forward on those goals in a coordinated manner. Really insightful individual. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Simon Kriss. I know I sure did. Look, I am excited to talk to you today because not only are you I guess a self-described, according to your LinkedIn profile, customer experience futurologist, which I love that name. But also, you're an advisor to many boards, many executives. You have your own series of podcasts, which I'm sure we'll dig into a little bit as well. And I think very recently, you're Chief Innovation Officer at Customer Experience Innovation Institute, and definitely want to learn a little bit more about that. But is there anything that you don't do? Is my question.
According to my wife, I don't do enough housework.
Gotcha.
Outside of that,
that's familiar. Yeah, I got you. You've done so much, and I don't think it's worth digging through your CV per se, but I would love just a little bit of your CS origin story and where you decided to go down CS or CX kind of route, what kept you in the industry, and what it is about your psyche that kind of keeps you here.
Yeah, and that's a great question, Alex. Thanks. I need to reel you back about 35 years ago. I was working at a company selling curtains and blinds, and I started to see the emergence of this word telemarketing in Australia. So I thought, well, this is something new I can jump into. So I did, and I spent most of my career in contact centers. And a story I love to tell is that in those very early days when I was a team leader, actually, there was the group manager of this big telco call center that I was working in said to us, got all the team leaders together and said, if you get hold of this call center thing, it'll take you anywhere you want to go. And I remember thinking, what a load of management BS. I actually had to find her about 10 years ago. She'd since retired, of course. I had to find her and thank her for that advice because she was right. Contact centers and therefore kind of customer experience have taken me all around the world. I lived in Hong Kong for 15 years, worked across Asia, worked across Europe. It's been spectacular. So the things that kind of keep me in this is just that it keeps growing, it keeps changing, it keeps evolving, and I love that. I'm an innovator at heart. I can't help it. I look at something and I don't see what it is, I see what it could be. Sometimes that's a curse, but that's just the way I'm wired. And CX keeps changing. Either we get tech changes coming through, or we just see changes in the customer base. What COVID has done to customer expectation is absolutely monumental. So, there's been a tectonic shift, let alone all the work from home stuff. So it keeps changing, it keeps evolving. And so for someone like me, it's a great industry to be in.
Yeah, the COVID situation definitely accelerated a lot of, I think, like tooling and norms in the industry. I think that prior to, like, for instance, one of the things I was talking to somebody else about recently was the resurgence of the QR code, because everybody had kind of written off the QR code for a long time, and now you walk into any restaurant or bar, and the way that you read the menu is by scanning the QR code, and it's those kinds of things that I find fascinating that have kind of seen a resurgence because of COVID.
Yeah, years ago, if you walked into a bank with a mask on, you got arrested. Now, if you walk into a bank without a mask on, you get arrested.
You get arrested.
So, the world's kind of done a bit of a 180.
Yeah,
it has.
Yeah, it has. One of the things I saw on your profile was that you, I think recently, a year or two ago, did a program at Harvard Business School, Disruptive Innovation and Strategy. Can you enlighten us a little bit about that? It sounds...
Yeah, look, that's an online course with Harvard Business School, and it's probably one of the best short courses I've ever done.
Yeah.
It was designed by the late Clay Christensen, who is a bit of a godfather around innovation. And it really starts to pull apart what innovation is and how it manifests itself. So innovation isn't just a single word. There is efficiency innovation, there's sustaining innovation, there's catalyst innovation. So, I'm sure at some point in this podcast, we're going to talk about generative AI. That is catalyst innovation. A technology has come along that's now driven innovation. So just looking at it from a completely different view and looking at how companies try to disrupt themselves but actually can't, and how does that differ from new disruptors that come in? And we're seeing that so much in the digital CS space, particularly around knowledge management. There's the existing knowledge management players, the names you would know, the Verint's, LivePros, Panviva, or Upland as they are now. They're there, and they're desperately trying to jump into generative AI. But coming at it from the other side are these set of disruptors that are building a knowledge base on their generative AI system. So, companies like Brainfish in Sydney is a great example of companies that are doing that. So that whole course was really just looking at how does a company start to realize that its current sustaining strategy is dying, and what does it do to propel the new thing?
Yeah. This is slightly off topic, but kind of on topic. I like to play corporate buzzword bingo with some folks when we're on like calls or whatever. And
awesome.
Innovation is one of those words that's on the buzzword bingo card that I think we could probably remove based on your description, because I think, I think we're surrounded with it, and especially this resurgence of generative AI, or surging generative AI, where you have, a fundamental shift in what technology can do for us, much like you did in the Industrial Revolution, or
correct,
when internet came to be a thing. So I love your description of how generative AI fits into kind of innovation and what people are doing around it. So.
Yeah. Here's the real kicker about innovation, though, and you're right, it has become a bit of an overused buzzword, is I work with a lot of company boards and a lot of C-suites, and most often when I get together with them, they are, we're innovative and we want to do innovation. And I say, okay, how do you do innovation?
Yeah.
And almost without fail, they can't answer that question. So they lean on the C-suite to say, bring us some innovation. But they don't say what kind of innovation or what does innovation look like. So I spend a lot of my time teaching company boards how to innovate. So I've run one-day hackathons with company boards, and we'll put 4 or 5 big things that are affecting the entire world up on the wall and start trying to hack around I'm talking global warming, the introduction of generative AI, the massive shift to work from home, all of these things that are affecting every industry, to try and teach boards what it means to be innovative, because it has literally become a buzzword that they throw out left, right, and center, but they don't know how to execute on that.
That's you see that everywhere, right? Every SaaS company is an innovator.
An innovator,
But
that's right.
I think what you're describing is fundamentally, sitting down and identifying, and the good ones do this, right? They identify what is the core problem you're trying to solve around these massive, problems. Like what is the problem you're trying to solve? And then that becomes, your company OKRs, and then that trickles down. But it all comes from this place of like, okay, what are we going to do to solve this, and how are we going to do it differently than others? Am I on the right track there, basically?
Yep, absolutely. And who is your competitor? And
Yeah.
when you ask a C-suite and a board who is your competitor, if they're Chase Bank, they say, oh, well, there's this bank and that bank and that bank. And I'm like, no, they're your known competitors. You've got a whole pile of unknown competitors that you're not thinking about. You're not thinking about that startup that uses AI to offer investment advice via a bot. That's the one you've got to be looking at. So it's a whole lot of that stuff of just...
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just about helping them create the time and space to stop, think, and innovate. Because they're so busy going bang, 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 bang every day, they don't have the time. They don't make the space to do it.
Slam on the brakes, think about it for a while, then proceed with caution.
Mull it around. Work it with your peers. Bounce ideas off each other. That's where you're going to get some real breakthrough.
That's amazing.
As a great example, I was doing this with a group, a large group of WFM, workforce management people from a major global BPO. And they were all we were talking about how do we innovate workforce management. And they were, well, we could publish the roster this way, or we could ask people preferences, blah, blah, blah. And I just kept pushing them and pushing them and pushing them because I wanted to get to a certain point. And finally we hit the point, and one of the guys said, we're trying to solve the resource problem. What if we solved the demand problem? What if we didn't let customers call in whenever they want? What if customers had to set up a time and we called them so we could control the demand? Now, would that work for this given contact center or whatever? I don't know. But you want to get to that point where you're breaking people's thinking and having them think differently. That, for me, is what real innovation is.
Yep. Step out of the norms. I love it. Speaking of innovation, we talked a little bit about generative AI. By the time our listeners are hearing this, you will have published a book about generative AI and all kinds of goodness. We talked a little bit about it just a minute ago, and I was very excited. I can't wait to read it. And I know that you're going to discuss in your book, around just use cases, and there have been a lot of use cases kind of floating around in recent months and weeks, and account summaries and all that kind of fun stuff that we're going to be able to do in the promised land of generative AI. But I would like for you to maybe expand on that a little bit, because I think there is the near term and the stuff that we're all excited about, but what's beyond that, and what's the tech that's going to tie all this together in your opinion?
Yeah, what a great question. And thanks for the free chance to plug my book. It's going to be available on Amazon, and it's called The AI Empowered Customer Experience. So there's the plug. It's really interesting what's happening right now. In almost every McKinsey paper, BCG, whatever's reported in the Wall Street Journal, there's generative AI and they're going to make great chatbots. And that's fantastic. That is an absolute use case, and it's a wonderful use case. But it's not the only use case. There are a whole lot of use cases for how the customer, how the CS experience can be enhanced. But there's a ton that can also be done to enhance the employee experience, the EX. Right, the little helper on your screen that helps you through, the way in which knowledge management is just radically being overhauled. And then there's a whole lot of things, use cases internally. So as an example, in 2023, why is anybody sitting in front of their PC for 5 hours doing a monthly PowerPoint deck that nobody reads? Why are we doing that? Let's have generative AI go to all of the data sources raw and maybe listen to 2,000 calls and 2,000 chats and bring all of that intelligence up and use an avatar service like Synthesia to create a 2-minute video that can go to the CEO, they can watch it, and if they've got a question, they can just ask AI and it'll tell them the answer. Yeah. There's so many great use cases, and it's technology that's here now, but it's in pieces. So we've got companies like DeepGram leading the way on how quickly you can turn voice into text, and they're down to like a 300 millisecond delay.
Wow.
So I saw a demonstration where they fed in a 1-hour podcast, and it took 12 and a half seconds to turn it into text. So, you've got that great technology. You've got people doing amazing stuff in the quality space like Daisy. You've got, all of these players doing all of their bits and pieces. And so right now, today, if you want that use case, you're kind of going back to the days of the Frankenstack a little bit of I'm going to get this from here and this from here and this from here. Yeah, so what we haven't seen yet... Yeah, what we haven't seen yet is what's happened with, CCaaS and all those types of things where, I want to be everything to everybody. So I'm either going to build it or I'm going to buy it, but I'm going to own the entire end-to-end. We're not seeing that in AI yet. What we're seeing is, I can write this little bit of code and it can leverage these two or three other AI vendors, and together we can have an end-to-end experience. Now, at some point, laws of business tell us that there is going to be some form of consolidation, some form of, one of the big players will come in, in Moment, someone like that will just come in and, start acquiring and building out end to end. Yeah. So for me, I think that the step forward where this is going in technology is that AI is going to start to direct new business cases. AI is going to start to identify things going on in the business that it kind of says, you know what, we need to solve for this. And then somebody is going to have to build that tech. But the last thing I'll say about AI is it's one of the few times in the history of the planet where the technology has outstripped the use cases. Right? Yeah. It happened many years ago with the steam engine, and my good friend Kriss keeps, taking us back to those industrialization times, where the steam engine came out and it was fantastic, but everybody stood there and stared at it and went, "What would I do with it?"
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Then the same thing happened with the internet, and the same thing's happening with AI. It's racing ahead. You can barely keep up. I can't keep up with everything that's happening in AI, and yet people are still struggling to find the use case, the true use case. So the idea of the book that I've just written is that it's full of a whole pile of use cases to say, consider this. And what I'm encouraging people to do is find one use case and go and build that, go and work for that, and then slowly build it out. But we seem to have a bit of FOMO and FOMIF. So FOMO is fear of missing out. So people are just running out and buying the first shiny thing that has the letters AI on it, even though they don't know what they're going to do with it. It's I heard somebody the other day describe it as they're trying to use a rocket ship just to cycle down to the corner store. And the other side of that is FOMIF, which is fear of moving forward. Mm-hmm. And so we've got companies that are just paralyzed by, we don't know AI, we don't have any data scientists internally, we don't have capability, and they need to move past that too and start to find a use case that at least gets their toe in the water.
Yeah, I love that honing in on a very specific thing. I saw a post recently by somebody, I forget who it is, but I follow somebody that tracks AI trends or whatever, and it was like 100 AI startups that are doing cool stuff, and it was like this massive thing of like all these different startups doing stuff with AI, and I'm like, I don't have time for that. Like I cannot. That like makes me want to shut down and put myself in a dark room and just disappear.
Yeah, look, in March there was 1,064 new AI applications launched globally. 1,064 in 1 month. How does anybody keep up with that?
No. Yeah, absolutely. But to your point, I'm looking forward to reading your book because it, I do agree. Much like with any, what I would advise any digital customer success team to do is pick one thing, maybe two things that you really want to go after and put all your focus onto that. And once you've done that really well, like move on to the next, because it's not logical to just try to tackle everything at once.
Yeah, look, I would say if you're looking for first steps around AI, first step is put together a bit of a delta team. Don't let IT control the narrative on this. Pull together a delta team. You can come up with a better name, I'm sure. But somebody from marketing,
Tiger
somebody
team.
from customer service, a tiger team. There you go. Somebody from IT. Get them together and let them dedicate their time to just starting to investigate what's out there and what they could do and what use cases they might have, and then develop that out further. And they can report back to the C-suite and say, okay, here's where we are. We've gone and spoken to 20 vendors. We think we've got this and this. That's the first one. The second one is immediately the C-suite need to start thinking about building an ethical framework. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't get your ethics right, if you don't get your bias under control, if you don't get your responsibility guidelines in place, you are going to fail horrendously. So it's about knowing what we can and can't do. What do we as a company believe is ethical and moral? And in the book, I talk through a couple of examples of that. Is this ethical or is this ethical? It comes down to values and organizational values. So that work needs to be done.
Agree wholeheartedly. Shifting gears a little bit, this is the Digital Customer Success Podcast, and I would be remiss if I didn't ask all of my guests the same question, which incidentally will be turned into a word map on the website post haste. But I would love from you your elevator pitch. If you were to describe digital customer success to somebody in 10, 15 seconds, what would you say?
So it's about taking customer success from a reactive position to a proactive position. In the past, we demanded that customers came to us. They must come to our website to find our phone number or to find our chat now button, and they had to do it our way. We got to dictate. The way in which the digital customer success is moving is that we are now taking that experience to them. So if you have a whole pile of your customer base or potential customer base that is sitting in Discord, you better start offering service via Discord. You better start offering service via WhatsApp. You better start offering service via, whatever that channel might be. And so for me, the digital customer success is taking customer service, taking sales and support and all those functions and projecting them out and saying, I'm going to come and meet you where you are. And part of that is also meeting the expectation that the customers have about, can they self-serve? Most customers are very happy to self-serve. If that self-service is easy and quick and it makes sense, they'll do it, because then they don't have to, let's face it, if you don't have to talk to somebody, you don't. And for me, that's what digital customer success is. It's about projecting forward rather than forcing people to come to you.
I love that. Meet the customer where they are. I dig it.
Yeah, we're doing a little bit of the CXII is doing some research right now. Actually a field work's done, and I've had a sneak peek of what the results are, but it's being written up. And what we've done is we've interviewed 2,000 youth between the ages of 14 and 19. And we've started to ask them, what do they think customer experience is? What do they think customer service is? What works for them, what doesn't? What types of brands are they engaging with? Who aren't they engaging with? And what would make them engage more in the future? So what do they expect? And how strong is a parental influence? And some really surprising results are coming out. And I'll sneak one out here. It's nobody else has heard this yet, Alex.
Ooh, exclusive.
50% of this group of 14 to 19-year-old Gen Zs, when they're having a customer service experience, do not feel in control of that experience. They just don't feel in control of it at all. And they hate that. That quirks them. So, companies are going to have to start to pivot to meet the needs of these customers of the future as they come on board. Some of them are their customers already. Some of them are about to become their customers.
Very
and
interesting.
the big shout out is really to government. These kids are just not engaging with government. They don't care about government. They don't want to talk to government. All they see is this big bureaucratic machine that they can't possibly touch. Particularly when you compare government to, say, Netflix. Right? There's a pretty big difference there.
And to be fair, the government probably doesn't want to talk to them either.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is interesting. We mentioned at the outset that you've served in an advisory capacity for a lot of companies and a lot of executives, and I would love to understand a little bit more about some of the blunders or some of the missteps that you've seen companies take when they try to adopt a digital program or try to engage customers in a scaled way.
Oh, this just became a 3-hour podcast.
Yes, it did.
No, look, the biggest blunder I see is assuming that the leadership team of that company know what their customers want. They just seem to make this big natural assumption that when they talk about what customers want, well, let's get the head of operations, the head of customer experience, the head of marketing, let's get them in a room and we'll be able to figure it out. They don't talk to the customers, and they don't even bother talking to the frontline people, be that people in the shop front that are at the counter, people in the contact center, people that are seeing what's happening on the web. They just don't engage with that. And that is probably the single biggest blunder. Sorry?
Mm-hmm. They'll gladly tell you if you ask them.
Oh, absolutely. With a company I was working with, actually, we were looking at the employee experience, and I said, so why don't we SMS 500 people that have left the business in the last 2 years? And we did. And something like 260 of them replied. So I said to the CEO, wow, these people didn't just leave, they left with passion. Mm-hmm. There was a reason that they left. Yeah. And it's the very same thing in the customer experience. If you start talking to those customers, those that are very passionate are definitely going to come out and tell you exactly what they think.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So there's a few other little blunders, like buying the tech that you see at a conference because it looks sexy at the conference, but you have no idea what to do with it.
Right.
or where one of the senior executives goes to what I call the airport business school. So they were in the airport, sitting in the lounge, nothing to do, picked up the Harvard Business Review or picked up some business magazine, Time magazine, read in there, you should build chatbots. So they come running back to the business and say, we should build chatbots. No rhyme or reason other than they went to the airport business school to find out about it.
Yeah. Sitting
That happens.
sipping on a beer in a bar. Oh, we should do that.
We should do that. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Let's do that. That's amazing. You've dropped so many lovely tidbits and whatnot. I would like to understand a little bit more, kind of as we close out. What's in your content diet? Like, how do you keep yourself fresh and informed in terms of books and podcasts and YouTube and whatever your sources are? We want to know so we can divulge them.
Yeah, absolutely. I do like to read. I like to just kind of keep up with books. If somebody's looking for a book on innovation, I absolutely recommend one written by David, can't think of his surname, the editor of Wired magazine. The book is called Non-Bullshit Innovation. That is the title. And it is absolutely what that book is about. It's just fantastic, page after page of examples of true innovation in businesses. I do listen to a few podcasts, Alex. Listen to yours. There's probably 2 or 3. I'm blessed or cursed with living on 15 acres of land, and that means a lot of time mowing. Mm-hmm. So it's a great time to just stick in the headphones and listen to podcasts while I mow 7 or 8 acres.
Are you on a tractor or are you sitting on?
I do have a little tractor. My wife says I look like Forrest Gump sitting out there doing the thing on the tractor. But I listen to podcasts there. So yeah, there's a number of podcasts. There's a wonderful one in Australia by the CSIRO, which is our big research organisation here in Australia, and it's called Everyday AI. And it just demystifies AI a bit. So I spend a bit of time listening to that one. Other than that, just connecting with the right people and the right groups on LinkedIn, and watching the content that comes from those people. It often spawns more thought, more questions, things like that. So if you do nothing else, expand your LinkedIn network. Whatever your network is, whatever your network is, design on doubling it.
You know, that's such sage advice, and we don't get that often because people, I think, have this preconceived notion that networking is hard because it used to be hard. You used to have to go to events, and you used to have to meet people.
Yeah.
And now it's so easy to expand your network online and in a really relevant way that aligns. We talked about
if you're genuine though, Alex, if you're genuine,
of course.
So if you're just reaching out to people saying, hey, let's connect so I can tell you about my product, they're never going to connect. But if it is a genuine, hey, we seem to know the same people, I've been following some of your content, really love it, people then will sense that genuine connection and will connect, and that's where you can really start talking.
Always send a note and always read their profiles. Absolutely.
Always.
You mentioned a couple of podcasts that you listen to. I would love to understand a little bit more about some of the podcasts that you have and are launching.
Yep. So we have one launched and the other 2 this week, actually. So the one we have launched is called CX Sessions. And it's just a little bit like this, just having great discussions with CX leaders around the world. All forms of CX, not just contact center. We're talking to one of the upcoming ones is the managing director for cabin crew for one of the major airlines. I won't give away who. Talking about what does CX mean in the cabin. And, so we're really kind of trying to mix that up around what does CX mean in these various businesses. I've just interviewed a winemaker that doesn't have a cellar door to talk to him about what does he think CX is and how does he control his customer experience when somebody else is selling his wine. There's that one. The second one is the CX boardroom, and that's where I'm having these wonderful discussions every day with C-suite CEOs and company directors, and I don't know that other people get to do that. And so I've kicked off a podcast where I'm just interviewing company board members and CEOs, and it has to be kind of the CEO title, around what does CX mean in the boardroom? How is it impacting or influencing board decisions now? Has that changed since COVID, that type of stuff? And the third one is the fun one that I'm really looking forward to doing, is called CX Disruptors, and that's talking to people who, can I use a rude word? People who are doing cool shit. People who are doing cool shit with tech. Really, really cool stuff. People who are really starting to break new ground with some of the tech that they're doing. And I want to talk to the people behind those ideas, the people who, how did you even think of this idea type of thing? So, there'll be a number of pods rolling out.
That's exciting. And that kind of leads to my next question, which is there anyone you want to call out, anyone you want to give kudos or a shout out to that's doing some of those cool things, maybe more digital CS related, but in CX in general?
Yeah, look, I'll call out one that's flying under the radar a little bit. It's a company called IDverse. They really are breaking the mold on how you do identification and verification, so ID and V, down to everything being done from your mobile phone. So they're doing face analysis and comparing that to government-held documents like licenses and passports and things to be able to verify that it's you. But they go beyond that. They also make sure that it's you and that you're alive, so you don't get Weekend at Bernie's type thing. And hopefully people get that reference. But so they look at, is there a little pulse here? Are they seeing blood movement in the blood vessels on your face?
That's incredible.
Is the background behind you moving? Is it, so to try and avoid being tricked by generative AI that this is Simon Kriss, they're actually, down at that level. Really cool tech. The other one would be a group out of New Zealand called Soul Machines. They have an avatar service that when you use it, you have to turn on your camera, and they're analyzing your face while you're interacting. So if you frown and tilt your head a little bit, the avatar's likely to say, is there something you don't understand about that? Because they understand that motion means people are confused. If you start smiling, the avatar starts smiling. It's iRobot. I need to figure out where Arnold Schwarzenegger lives because, the robots are coming to get us. But there's some people that are doing some really, really cool tech.
So we talked about the book. We talked about the podcasts. You're all over LinkedIn. You do all kinds of, speaking engagements and whatnot. But, is there, how can people find you, engage with you, grab some time with you if they need it?
Yeah, look, the best way to grab me is via LinkedIn. It's just Simon Kriss, one word. It's not a big fancy thing on LinkedIn. You'll be able to find me, and I accept every request that kind of comes through. So
obviously,
you can connect with me there, or you can go to the website CXII.com.au and leave us a message there. There's my WhatsApp details and everything are on the website. So reach out any which way you like. I'll be out there.
Well, Simon, we battled a couple of technology challenges, but we got it done. I really appreciate all the knowledge that you imparted on us, and can't wait to speak with you in the future.
Awesome. Thanks again, Alex, and I'm loving the show. Keep doing more of it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Digital Customer Success Podcast. If you like what we're doing, or don't for that matter, consider leaving us a review on your podcast platform of choice. You can view the Digital Customer Success definition word map and get more information about the show at digitalcustomersuccess.com. My name is Alex Turkovich. Thanks again for joining, and we'll see you next time.